Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to note that this bill is the enabling legislation for what has been quoted as saying that the government will do whatever it takes to get Christchurch back on its feet. And this is that enabling legislation. We are, of course, passing it as rapid a fashion as is possible in this Parliament with around the House support for it. But I think it is important then, given that there is not to be other scrutiny than this process, that we do with the Minister and the Chair, the Minister in charge of the bill, the Minister who will be there for the earthquake recovery for the duration through Christchurch, is there to answer some questions. And I'd like to pose some of those, given that we are in an extraordinary way as a Parliament passing this legislation through all its stages, and now in the committee stages this is our chance to ask some questions of it. I do get a sense that this is a rather big rubber stamp for a rather bigger blank cheque, and we know that that's important and necessary because we have, for the first time probably since 1931, faced a calamity of this size and consequence, and nobody is more aware of that than I as the MP for probably the most affected electorate. But we do need to test and check this legislation as it goes through, because it does provide enormous powers to the government, to the Recovery Commission and to the councils, both Waimakariri, Selwyn and Christchurch, as they go about the business of rebuilding their communities. So I wanted to just ask some questions of the Minister in respect of the bill. For instance, we note how it provides for retrospective orders in council that can be made in certain circumstances, most particularly around where there's a need to protect actions that have been taken in the period between the uplifting of the state of emergency and the making of a relevant order in council. And I'd invite the Minister just to give us an explanation of some of the circumstances that might be envisaged where we might be seeing retrospective orders in council. And I acknowledge that we're going to see those before the Regulations Review Committee. That is wholly appropriate, but I would like to just have an outline from him of the sorts of circumstances that he envisages for retrospective orders in council. We know, of course, that there is going to be a limitation around the processes for public consultation. That's the very nature of the bill. That is a given. But there seems to be no requirement for mayors to consult their councils, certainly in respect of spending priorities. And I'd like the Minister to outline to us in some detail the processes of consultation that will be in place for councils, for advice to their constituents about what they're proposing to do, to take matters through orders in council, to make for rapid decisions, because I think it's important that we know what sorts of processes are envisaged in terms of alerting public to meetings, in terms of putting adverts in the paper, alerting them to decisions that are looming. We know we're in a rapid time frame, but the public of Christchurch is very vociferous. It is very passionate about the heritage of our city in particular. There are many people with good beating hearts who want to play a role in ensuring that protection of heritage is a priority, and it is important that they have some sense of a process where, even if it's limited, even if it's constrained by time and circumstance, that they will know what the council is proposing to do, even if it's a time frame of a matter of a week or a month, rather than the process normally that applies of a matter of many months with rights of appeal and a process involving courts if one wishes. We know we're going past that, but I think it's very important the Minister takes a call and outlines exactly what is envisaged in respect of the process of consultation and advice to constituents in councils, Christchurch, Waimakariri and Selwyn. I wanted also to ask a question around the changes in Clause 6.4, where of course we have 21 separate acts, 22 is it, being listed, which the Order in Council can provide an exemption to, can modify or extend, and then it includes the words "but are not limited to," which potentially could be read as meaning that Orders in Council could modify any legislation. Now that is a kind of breathtaking kind of possibility, and I think the House deserves some assurance from the Minister. I'm referring, Minister, if you didn't quite catch what I was saying, to Clause 6, bracket 4, in respect of potentially that meaning Orders in Council could modify any one of the 21 or 22. Mr Chair?
Mr. Chair.
The Honourable
Mr. Chair?
Mary Brownlee.